feel paralyzed.
Hello, it's ElectraSnow, and this is my final Joker tutorial, and as you can see, he's completely lost it. To start with, I'm mapping out a skull bone structure on my face, and I'm also marking in where some muscles would be sitting underneath the skin. I'm also leaving a line around the perimeter of my hairline to act as if that's where it started carving and he'd still have some skin sitting there. Then as usual, with liquid latex and cotton, I'm starting to build up the structure I want on my face. Now for this, it would be an instance where he'd carved it away, so it would be kind of like a minus mold if you're talking about plus and minuses. But to mimic that effect, we're going to build up the areas to make them hollow around the eyes and bigger at the cheeks to mimic the effect that he's actually carved his face off. For this, you want to kind of look at a reference of a skull so you can see where the hollow points are and the higher points are of it. So if you was to look at a skull and then imagine the muscles still sitting on top of it, there'd be hollows around the eyes because you'd be taking off that layer of skin. There'd be chubbier cheeks because there'd still be a high point of muscle there. And then you'd blur into the nose, so there'd be no nose at all. The cheek and nose would blend into one. So with this liquid latex and cotton method, I'm making sure to blend my nose into it so I completely hide it from my face. You want to get the latex and cotton relatively smooth, and to achieve this I use the back end of a makeup brush, or I apply extra latex to my finger and smooth it over top of the area. I then repeat that exact same process on the other side, and as you can see when it's complete, my nose is completely hidden inside the prosthetic. For the points of the face that would be lower, I'm still taking cotton wool and latex, but I'm applying very thin layers of it to keep the dimensions of the face correct, as these are the points that you want to be flatter and not protruding out as much. But with this, I'm taking more liquid latex on my finger, and to give a little effect as if there's tendons and veins pulling down and the gravity's pulling them away from his face at the jawline, I just take the liquid latex on my finger as it's almost dry and do kind of like hard pushing and pulling out movements to get some like strands of latex pulling off from my face. For the forehead, being as this is the flattest part of the face, I'm not applying cotton to that area, but I'm just applying liquid latex and then putting one ply of tissue paper into it. This still achieves the same texture, but reduces the height build up that you would achieve with cotton. When you're working with latex, you always end up with these kind of dried strands just laying about, which usually just get thrown away. But for this instance, we're going to be using them to apply to the face to give more kind of texture and like this weird veins and lines and wrinkling of like muscle damage and carved pieces into his face. I'm just taking those random strands of latex and pulling them out and applying them into the damp latex that is still on my forehead and face. For some finer, minute details, I'm taking some strands of wool which I've pulled out to be kind of just threads on their own, and then I'm pushing those threads into random areas on the face to mimic kind of like thread veins, and there's thin capillaries sticking out on top of the muscles and stuff like that. And it's on to the bit that I love doing, the teeth. Now these teeth are made out of polymorph plastic, and I have a video coming up on how I made these kind of things. The only way that these teeth are different from the ones that I show you in that video is that these ones are flat and are applied to the face. To apply these teeth, I just make sure that they align up on my face correctly, and anything that would be hanging over, you can just trim off with scissors. I then take an adhesive, and for this you can use spirit gum, liquid latex, or Prozaid. In this instance I'm using liquid latex, and I'm just applying that fully to the back side of these teeth. I'm then pushing them onto my face exactly where I want them, and I'm making sure to hold it there for a few minutes. Because with polymorph plastic it isn't porous, so applying liquid latex to it can take some time for it to adhere and dry so it sticks onto the face. Then I'm taking some more liquid latex, cotton and some tissue paper, and I'm using that around the perimeters of these teeth to anchor them down to the prosthetic on my face. As you probably noticed, one of the teeth did fall off, but I just performed a little bit of dental surgery with a bit of super glue to fix that back in place. For this top area on the teeth, you want to falsify the fact that there'd be gums there, so again with liquid latex and cotton, or with tissue paper, I'm using tissue in this instance, you want to build up some areas on top of these teeth to blend them into your face, but also to mould it around the teeth to form some gums. To apply the teeth to the lower jaw, this is done a little bit differently. It's done in the same way as applying it with latex and cotton and that kind of thing, but for this you want to hide out the fact that you have a chin and a bottom lip. So to do this, I'm just applying a piece of latex and cotton underneath of my bottom lip. I have quite large lips, so I'm applying that there to blend my lip into my chin, and then pushing that teeth prosthetic into that piece of cotton and latex, and then I'm building up the cotton and latex again around the teeth to make false gums and blend those gums across my chin to blend it into my jaw. For the paint job, I'm using a red cream face paint and I'm applying that with a geofiber brush. I'm using one of these brushes because it's a stippling brush and it will apply the product kind of sporadically across the face because we don't want it to be completely and utterly one flat red colour. You want to keep some kind of like low points of the latex slightly lighter, so with that geofiber brush it keeps some of that pigmentation still underneath the latex and it doesn't make it completely one flat colour. I'm just stippling that product all over my face, and then I'm taking a flat foundation brush with that same cream face paint and I'm using this to clean up the lines around the edges that are closest to the cuts. Then taking a red cream face paint, which is slightly more pink in tone, I'm taking that on a very small detailer brush and I'm just stippling that in random places all over the face to add a little bit more texture. And with that same pink toned red, I'm using that to fill in the gums because these want to be a little bit of a slightly different colour to what the muscles would be on the face. I'm then taking a black cream face paint and I'm using that to fill in the deepest parts of the face, so around the sides of the mouth as well as through the two teeth plates and around the sockets of my eyes as well. To make certain areas look a little bit more three-dimensional and to add a little bit of contour, as you could call it, I'm mixing a little bit of that red with some black and to kind of make a burnt crimson kind of colour, and I'm using that to apply around all the areas that are kind of like the deepest parts but not quite as deep as the black, so around the eyes to transition it into the socket so it's not just red against black, around the jawline and around the sides of the face where the cut would meet his actual skin, which is still attached to his head. And also along the brow bone to give the effect that the ridge of bone is still sitting just underneath that muscle. This slightly darker red just really helps in adding dimension back to the face because we really don't want to keep it one flat red colour. As I said, you want to have depth and dimension into it because this will really make the look pop and make it look like it is actually a ripped off face. As with most looks, the reality lies with the highlighting and contouring, and this is no different. I'm taking small cut up pieces of that red yarn again and I'm splitting it up into single fibres, and I'm just using that to go along the sides of the cheeks between the two jaws to add kind of tendrils connecting the two together. So you've ripped through a load of muscles there and you've just kind of got these lines of filament just connecting the two together, just about holding them from falling apart. I then mix a small amount of Mayron dark stage blood with some liquid latex, and by doing this it kind of gives the effect of like scabby dried blood on the skin when it begins to dry down. That latex adding into the blood itself kind of makes it look a little bit more tacky and makes it look kind of like juicy pieces on the skin. It's kind of a way of making like scab blood in a way, but it gives a slightly different texture to what scab blood looks like. This kind of like dries down and it doesn't flake off or give any transfer, so it just makes sure that the blood sticks to the skin and it will last a lot longer than just wet blood dripping over the face. I also took some more of those threads kind of in longer pieces and not some that aren't pulled out so much to just be threads on their own. I left it kind of wound up to an extent, and by dipping this into the latex and blood mixture as well, once this begins to dry down it actually looks like the veins on the face still have blood pumping through them, visible for you to see in all their gory detail. Then with some of that dark Mayron stage blood on its own, I'm just spotting that in some places to kind of look as if there's fresh trauma to the face that's kind of weeping and oozing blood in certain areas. To really darken up those eye sockets further, I'm taking a gel eyeliner by Illamasqua and I'm applying that all over my eyelid, through my water lines, completely covering my real eyelid and everything in jet black to really sink my eyes into my face to look like open sockets. I'm then taking a lighter fake blood and I'm just applying that all across the gum lines of the teeth. And although my camera doesn't want to focus on my now cut off face, I'm taking a tan coloured water activated face paint and I'm just taking that all across them very lightly, very watered down, just to darken up the teeth and make them look a little bit more decayed. Then taking MAC Full Coverage Foundation in white, I'm colouring in any areas of skin that are still attached to his skull. Then taking a black liquid liner, I'm outlining the line between the cut face and his skin still attached. This will just make sure that it looks like there's a depth line and that the cut face is sitting deeper in from the white skin. And as always with these looks, to make the makeup stand out from the outfit, I'm using a black water activated face paint to paint my neck and around my ears. I then swapped up my red lenses to these white out ones with his bloodshot effect, and that is this look complete. And that's this Joker series ending with him having a complete and utter psychopathic breakdown and carving off his own face. This skin face prosthetic here is the exact same one I used in my last Joker tutorial. I just pierced through the top of it with some opened up black paper clips, applied a kind of like a ribbony cord thing to it, and I also applied some small pieces of wire to both sides of the cheeks so I could pull it round and attach it to my ears. And I left a few other decorative ones sticking in the mouth area there so we could kind of use them to pull expressions on his face at will. will. So yeah guys, I really hope you enjoyed this Joker tutorial as well as all the other ones in the series. If you haven't checked out the other videos, please go and check them out now. The links to them will be down in the description below, as well as in the end card. All of the products that I've used in this video will of course be listed down there as well as all of my social media links. And as always, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, bye bye!